The council chamber floated in space, a massive ring of metal and crystal that had witnessed 10,000 years of galactic politics. Inside its curved walls, representatives from 847 different species gathered to discuss matters of trade, territory, and technology. Today, they were discussing humanity. Ambassador stood at the speaker's podium, his 6 legs clicking against the floor as he adjusted his position. He was a species that had mastered faster-than-light travel 50,000 years before humans had even discovered fire. His mandibles clicked together in what other species had learned to recognize as laughter. "Honored delegates," said, his voice translator rendering his words in the common galactic language. "Today we consider the application of a species that calls itself humanity for admission to our council." He gestured with one of his 4 arms, and a holographic display materialized above the chamber floor. The display showed a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. "This is they call it Earth. They have been a spacefaring species for exactly 103 standard years." A ripple of sound moved through the chamber. The trilled in their high-frequency voices. The silicon-based vibrated with harmonic patterns that translated to amusement. Even the normally stoic delegates shifted in their seats, their crystalline bodies refracting light in patterns that indicated surprise. 100 years, someone called out from the upper tiers. "My breakfast is older than their space program." More laughter echoed through the chamber, waited for it to subside before continuing. "Indeed, but let us examine their achievements." He pulled up another set of images. "Here we see their first venture beyond their planet, a chemical rocket that took 3 days to reach their moon. They celebrated this as their greatest triumph." The image showed grainy footage of astronauts bouncing across a gray, airless surface, planting a flag. To species that could cross galaxies in days, it looked like children playing in a sandbox. "They have established one colony on their neighboring planet," continued. "Population, 11,000. They operate a single asteroid mining facility. Their fastest ships require years to reach the edge of their own solar system. They have no gravity manipulation, no quantum consciousness transfer, no dimensional folding technology. They still use computers made of silicon and copper." A delegate stood, her feathers ruffling. "Ambassador, surely this is a joke. Why are we even considering such a primitive application?" His mandibles clicked again. "Protocol requires that we hear all petitions, regardless of their merit. The humans are here, and we must at least allow them to speak." All eyes turned to the petitioner's circle, a small platform in the center of the chamber. Standing there, looking impossibly small among the towering aliens, was Dr. Sarah. She wore a simple gray suit, and her dark hair was pulled back in a practical style. She appeared calm, though her hands were clasped behind her back. "Doctor," said, making a show of looking down at his notes, "you represent humanity. Please enlighten us as to why your species believes itself ready to join the galactic community." Sarah stepped forward. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "Humanity seeks membership because we believe we have something to contribute. We have survived wars, disease, and environmental catastrophe. We have learned to work together despite our differences. We have reached beyond our world driven by curiosity and hope." "Curiosity and hope," repeated. "How charming. Tell me, doctor, how long does your species live?" "Our natural is approximately 80 to 100 years, Sarah replied. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds. The lived for thousands of years. The being silicon-based could survive for tens of thousands. Even the short-lived managed 3 centuries. "So you live less time than it takes light to travel to your nearest neighboring star," said. "And in that brief, frantic existence, you believe you have gained the wisdom necessary to navigate galactic affairs." "We believe our perspective is valuable precisely because of our mortality," Sarah said. "We understand the value of time in ways longer-lived species may have forgotten." made a dismissive gesture. Philosophy is a poor substitute for capability. Let me be frank, Doctor. Your species has nothing to offer us. No technology we don't already possess in superior form. No resources we cannot obtain more easily elsewhere. No knowledge that we haven't explored ago. He pulled up a comparison chart. The Dominion achieved faster-than-light travel 50,000 years ago. They achieved it 70,000 years ago. The Watchers, who have been observing silently as always, achieved it before we have reliable records. You still putter around your solar system at chemical rocket speeds, celebrating each tiny advancement as if you've discovered the secrets of the universe. Sarah's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. We understand we have much to learn. Learn? His voice rose. You would need 10,000 years just to catch up to our level when we first discovered FTL. You are infants playing with toys, and you want to sit at the table with civilizations that were ancient when your ancestors were still living in caves. He turned to address the full council. I move that we reject humanity's application. Furthermore, I recommend we classify them as a protected developing species. They should be restricted to their home system until such time as they have matured sufficiently to join us. I suggest we revisit their application in, say, 10,000 standard years. The vote was swift. Delegates pressed their consent markers, and the tally appeared in the air. 796 in favor of rejection, 50 abstentions, 0 in favor of acceptance. The abstentions came primarily from species that rarely voted one way or another, and one from the Watchers, who never explained their decisions. The motion carries, announced. Humanity's application is rejected. Doctor, you may return to your and inform your people that they are not yet ready for galactic society. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when you've developed past your current primitive state, you may reapply. Sarah bowed slightly, her face unreadable. Thank you for your consideration, Ambassador. The council has been most instructive. She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps barely audible in the vast chamber. Most delegates had already moved on to other matters, discussing trade agreements and border disputes. Humanity was dismissed, forgotten before Doctor had even reached the door. Watched her go, feeling a mild sense of satisfaction. The incident would make an amusing story at the next diplomatic gathering. He had recordings of the most ridiculous parts of the human presentation. That image of them celebrating their moon landing as if it were a great achievement would provide entertainment for years. As Sarah boarded the small human diplomatic vessel docked at the station, her carefully maintained composure finally broke. But not in the way one might expect. She didn't cry or rage. Instead, she allowed herself a small, cold smile. She moved to the communication console and entered a series of codes that encrypted her message through 17 different quantum channels. The message was brief. Recommendation: proceed with option sigma. The response came back in less than a second, already anticipated. Acknowledged. Timeline 20 years. Sarah looked out the viewport at the massive council station, gleaming in the light of a nearby star. She thought about's words, about how humanity had nothing to offer, about how they were children playing with toys. He was right, of course. Humanity was primitive by galactic standards. Their technology was crude, their knowledge limited, their brief. They had been working on the galactic problem for barely a century while others had worked on it for. But had made one critical error in his assessment. He assumed that being behind meant humanity would stay behind. He assumed that their slow progress was the only pace they were capable of achieving. He assumed that the rules of advancement that applied to his species applied to humans. Sarah's smile widened slightly as the human vessel detached from the station and began its slow journey back to Earth. She pulled a data chip from her pocket, barely larger than her fingernail. On it were the complete recordings of the council session, detailed scans of every technology on the station, analysis of every ship in the docking bays, and preliminary assessments of galactic civilization's strengths and weaknesses. They had spent 50,000 years refining their technology incrementally, building on foundations laid by even older species. They had learned how things worked, but they had long ago stopped asking why. They had reached a comfortable plateau and settled there, content with their superiority over younger species. Humanity had no such comfort. They were desperate, curious, and acutely aware of their own mortality. Every human generation knew it had only a few decades to make its mark, to push the boundaries, to try the impossible. Where older species saw barriers, humans saw puzzles. Where others saw good enough, humans saw, can we do better? Sarah had come to the council with two objectives. The first was to seek peaceful admission to galactic society. That had failed, as expected. The second objective was to gather intelligence, and that had succeeded beyond all expectations. The council had been so busy laughing at humanity that they hadn't noticed the sensors in Sarah's clothing, the quantum recording devices in her neural implant, or the way she had carefully positioned herself to get optimal scans of their most advanced technologies. The ship's computer chimed. Doctor, course set for Earth. Estimated arrival 6 months. Acknowledged, Sarah said. Compile all data gathered during the council session. Prepare it for immediate transmission to Project Prometheus upon our return. Project Prometheus. The name was fitting. In ancient human mythology, Prometheus had stolen fire from the gods and given it to humanity. What Sarah was bringing home was something far more valuable than fire. She was bringing home the complete technical specifications of a civilization 50,000 years more advanced than Earth. And more importantly, she was bringing home proof of their complacency. As the station shrank behind them and the human vessel accelerated toward home, Sarah composed a message to be delivered upon arrival. It would go to the directors of Project Prometheus, to the civilian leaders of Earth, Mars, and the Belt colonies, to the scientific communities that had been waiting for this moment. The message was simple. They rejected us. They laughed at us. They told us to come back in 10,000 years. I recommend we come back in 20. Let's show them what desperate children can accomplish when they're told they can't. In the council chamber was already moving on to the next item on the agenda, a territorial dispute between thee and the collective. He had completely forgotten about the humans and their rejected application. It was such a minor matter, barely worth the time they'd spent on it. He would remember them eventually. Everyone would. But by then, it would be far too late to do anything about it. The galaxy had mocked humanity, and humanity had listened, had smiled, had bowed politely, and had gone home to do what humans did best, prove everyone wrong. The countdown had begun. 20 years, in galactic terms barely a heartbeat, in human terms an eternity, time enough to change everything. 20 years and 3 months had passed since humanity's rejection by the Galactic Council, and in that time, the galaxy had continued as it always had. Trade routes remained stable, territorial disputes were negotiated through proper channels, and the great wheel of galactic civilization turned at its stately, predictable pace. For Ambassador, those 20 years had been busy but routine. He had negotiated 17 treaties, presided over countless council sessions, and risen to become the Dominion's senior representative. His standing had grown, his influence had expanded, and his opinion was sought on matters of increasing importance. He had completely forgotten about humanity. The first reports came from the frontier, from the sparse regions where galactic civilization bordered the empty systems beyond. Trade captain of the merchant vessel Endless Profit filed a routine incident report. Brief sensor contact near the Sol system, gone before investigation could be completed. Probably a sensor glitch. The report was filed and forgotten. 2 weeks later, a deep space monitoring station near Wolf 359 sent a distress signal. The signal cut off mid-transmission. When a patrol vessel arrived 3 days later, they found the station intact, all systems operational, but completely empty. No crew, no bodies, no signs of struggle. The security footage showed nothing but static during the 30-second window when the crew had vanished. The patrol commander filed a report suggesting equipment malfunction, or possibly that the crew had abandoned the station due to a false alarm. The report noted that all escape pods were still docked, but perhaps the crew had been picked up by a passing vessel. It was unusual, but space was full of unusual incidents. Then it happened again. A research outpost studying a neutron star went silent. A mining operation on a distant asteroid reported strange sensor readings before losing contact. A diplomatic courier vessel disappeared between jumps, its last known position near the edge of human space. After 6 months and 17 incidents, the Galactic Council took notice. Was appointed to lead an investigative fleet, a duty he accepted with mild irritation. This would interrupt his work on more important matters, but someone had to look into it. Probably pirates using the region as cover, or some natural phenomenon they hadn't encountered before. He assembled 12 warships, a show of force that would intimidate any pirates and provide enough sensor coverage to identify any natural anomaly. Each ship represented the pinnacle of military technology: weapons capable of shattering planets, shields that could withstand the radiation of a supernova, sensors that could detect a heartbeat from a light year away. The fleet emerged from FTL at the border of what galactic charts designated as the Sol system's sphere of influence, stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable Conquest, and surveyed the space before them. "Broadcast on all frequencies," he ordered. "This is Ambassador of the Dominion, representing the Galactic Council. We are investigating incidents in this region. Any parties responsible for interference with Council vessels and stations are ordered to identify themselves immediately." Silence answered him. Long-range sensors showed nothing but empty space and distant stars. "Sir," his sensor officer reported, "I'm detecting residual quantum signatures consistent with advanced propulsion systems. Multiple points of origin, but no current contacts." Advanced propulsion, his mandibles clicked together. "Define advanced." "More advanced than ours, sir. The quantum decay patterns suggest a drive system operating at efficiency levels 30 to 40% beyond our current technology." Felt the first stirring of unease. "That's not possible. We have the most advanced propulsion systems in the galaxy. Show me the data." Before the sensor officer could respond, every console on the bridge chimed simultaneously. A contact had appeared on their sensors, but not in the way ships usually appeared. It hadn't emerged from FTL or approached from a distance. It was simply there, as if it had always been there and they had only just now been allowed to see it. The vessel was small, perhaps 1/10 the size of the inevitable Conquest. Its hull was smooth, almost organic-looking, with none of the angular design elements common to galactic starship construction. It didn't reflect light in the normal way. Instead, it seemed to absorb and redirect it, making it difficult to focus on. "Hail them," ordered. A face appeared on the and felt a shock of recognition. It was a human face, older than he remembered but unmistakable. Dr. Sarah looked out at him, her hair now streaked with gray, her face lined with age that her species accumulated so quickly. "Hello again, Ambassador," she said. Her voice was calm, almost pleasant. "You told us to come back when we'd matured, so we went away and did our homework." Stared at her. "You, the incidents, the disappearances, that was humanity." "We prefer to call them recruitments," Sarah said. "Everyone who disappeared is safe and comfortable. We've been offering them a choice: join us in exploring new possibilities or return home with no memory of the encounter. Most have chosen to stay." "This is an act of war," said, his voice hardening. "You have attacked Council installations, abducted Council citizens." "We haven't attacked anyone," Sarah replied. "We've been careful not to harm a single individual. We've simply been conducting research, learning about our galactic neighbors. You did tell us we needed to learn, didn't you? His four arms gestured sharply. Weapons systems target that vessel. His tactical officer's fingers danced across the controls. Weapons locked, sir, ready to fire on your command. You might want to reconsider that, Sarah said. She hadn't moved, her expression hadn't changed, but something in her voice made hesitate. Why would I reconsider destroying a hostile vessel? Because I'd prefer to demonstrate peacefully, Sarah said. But if you insist on a show of force, we can provide one. His mandibles clicked together in anger. Fire. The inevitable conquest's main plasma cannons discharged, weapons powerful enough to slag a moon. The bolts of superheated matter crossed the distance to the human ship in less than a second. They passed through it as if it wasn't there. What? Stared at his tactical display. How is that possible? Your weapons are impressive, Sarah said, but they operate on principles you discovered but never fully understood. You learned how to generate and direct plasma, but you never explored the quantum that make directed energy weapons possible. We did. The human ship moved, and its brain struggled to process what his eyes were seeing. The vessel didn't accelerate in any direction. It simply existed in a new location, having crossed 3,000 kilometers in an instant without appearing to have traveled the distance between. Your shields, Sarah continued. May I? Before could respond, his console chimed. Every weapons system on the inevitable conquest had gone offline, not destroyed, not damaged, simply deactivated as if someone had flipped a switch. What have you done? Demanded. A simple electromagnetic pulse, tuned to the specific frequency your weapon systems use for power distribution. It passed through your shields as if they weren't there because, fundamentally, your shields operate in a different quantum state. They're excellent at stopping matter and standard energy weapons. They're useless against properly tuned quantum field manipulation. Looked at his tactical display. All 12 ships in his fleet showed the same status, weapons offline, shields functional but clearly irrelevant. This is impossible. You've only been in space for 100 years. 123 years, Sarah corrected. Though that's measuring by your calendar, we experience time a bit differently now. What does that mean? Sarah's ship. One moment there was one vessel, the next there were 12, each one appearing next to a different warship in its fleet. Each one was identical to the others. Your species mastered FTL 50,000 years ago, Sarah said, her voice now coming from 12 different directions simultaneously. That's impressive. It really is. But you learned it from studying the wreckage of an even older species' ship. You reverse-engineered the technology without understanding the underlying principles. You learned the how but never the why. That's not, started to object, but stopped. It was true, though it was rarely discussed. The great breakthrough had come from studying an ancient derelict found drifting in space. They had simply never admitted it publicly. Humanity didn't have that advantage, Sarah continued. We had to figure everything out from first principles. We had to ask why gravity works, why space-time bends, why quantum entanglement exists. We couldn't just copy someone else's homework. We had to do the actual learning. 20 years, said. You're claiming you advanced 50,000 years worth of technology in 20 years. Not exactly, Sarah replied. We didn't advance along your technological path. We took a completely different route. When you're slow, when you're primitive, when everyone is ahead of you, you can't win by playing catch-up. You have to change the rules of the game. Explain. Your FTL drive folds space. It's elegant, it works. It's been sufficient for your needs. But it's built on a flawed assumption about the nature of space-time. We developed something different, something that treats space-time not as something to be folded, but as something to be rewritten. Your shields protect against energy by deflecting it. Ours protect by ensuring the energy never existed in our reference frame to begin with. Your weapons destroy matter. Ours convinced matter that it would prefer to be somewhere else. Felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries, genuine fear. You're saying you've surpassed us in every technological field. In most of them, Sarah admitted. In others, we're still learning. But yes, Ambassador, in the 20 years you forgot about us, we've been working. Every human scientist, every engineer, every researcher has been focused on a single goal, making sure that when we came back you would listen. The weapons systems on the inevitable conquest flickered back to life, saw the change on his console and looked up sharply. We're returning control of your ships, Sarah said. We could have destroyed your fleet in the first microsecond of contact. We could have done to you what you assumed we would do to us if you had found us sufficiently irritating. But that's not why we're here. Then why are you here? To deliver a message, Sarah said. All 12 images of her spoke in perfect synchronization. Humanity withdraws its application for membership in the Galactic Council. We've decided we don't need your permission to exist in this galaxy. We'll establish our colonies, pursue our research, and develop our civilization without your oversight or approval. The Council will never accept that, said. You may have impressive technology, but we number in the trillions across thousands of worlds. You're still one species on one planet. Actually, we're on 47 worlds now, Sarah corrected. We've been busy. And as for your numbers, Ambassador, quantity has its advantages, but it's not everything. Return to the Council. Tell them what happened here. Tell them humanity is no longer asking for permission. The 12 human ships vanished as suddenly as they had appeared. Sensors showed no trace of them, no quantum signatures, no residual energy readings. It was as if they had never existed. His communication officer broke the silence. Sir, what are your orders? Stared at the empty space where the human ships had been. He thought about the laughter in the council chamber 20 years ago, the casual dismissal of humanity as primitive children. He thought about his own words, telling Doctor to come back in 10,000 years. They had come back in 20 years, and they had come back changed. Set course for the council station, said quietly, and prepare a full report. Everything that happened here, every detail, every scan. Sir, if I may ask, what do you think they want? His mandibles clicked together, but this time not in laughter. I think they want to be left alone, and I think we should be very grateful that's all they want. As the fleet turned and prepared to jump back to council space, none of them noticed the small sensor probe that remained behind, invisible to their detection systems, watching and recording everything. The data flowed back through quantum channels to distant human colonies, where it was analyzed, studied, and filed away for future reference. The galaxy had mocked humanity. The demonstration was complete. Now came the reckoning. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 3 days after its return. The council chamber, usually echoing with the sounds of routine debate and negotiation, was silent as presented his report. He showed the sensor logs, the recordings of his encounter with the human ship, the evidence of technology that shouldn't exist. When he finished, the silence continued for a long moment. Then the chamber erupted in chaos. Impossible, the delegate shrieked, her feathers standing on end. They're primitives, chemical rockets and copper computers. The sensor logs don't lie, replied. I've had 3 separate teams verify the data. What we encountered was real. The delegate, a massive crystalline being, spoke in a voice like grinding stones. Then this is a threat that must be eliminated. If one primitive species can advance so rapidly, they could destabilize the entire galactic order. Heads nodded throughout the chamber. The Dominion's military representative stood. I propose immediate military action. We assemble a fleet, a real fleet, and we teach these upstarts their place. Face them with 12 ships. Let us send 300. The vote was swift. Only the Watchers abstained, as they always did. 312 ships from a dozen different species would be assembled. It would be the largest military operation in 2,000 years of Council history. Humanity would be made an example of. They would submit, or they would be eliminated. Voted in favor, because what choice did he have? But as he watched the council prepare for war, he felt a deep unease. He remembered Sarah's calm smile, the way she had demonstrated her capabilities without causing a single casualty. He remembered her saying that humanity could have destroyed his fleet in a microsecond if they had wanted to. If they could have destroyed 12 ships, what made the council think 300 would be different? The Armada assembled over 6 weeks. Warships from across the galaxy converged on a staging area 3 light-years from Earth's sun. Promoted to Supreme Admiral for this operation, stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Absolute Authority, and watched the fleet form up. It was an impressive sight. 312 vessels, representing the finest military technology the galaxy had to offer, dreadnoughts capable of cracking planets, carriers filled with strike craft, frigates with sensors that could map an entire solar system. This was the full might of galactic civilization, assembled for the first time in living memory. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer said. "Begin the jump," ordered. "All vessels maintain formation. We enter the Sol system as one unified force." The fleet engaged their FTL drives and space folded around them. When it unfolded 3 hours later, they emerged in the Sol system in perfect battle formation, weapons charged, shields at maximum. And they found Earth completely undefended. Stared at his tactical display in confusion. Long-range scans showed Earth below, cities gleaming on the surface, space stations in orbit, colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. Everything was operating normally. Ships moved between stations carrying cargo. Communications chattered on civilian frequencies. But there wasn't a single military vessel in sight. "Scan for cloaked ships," ordered. "They have to be hiding." "Sir, I'm detecting no cloaking signatures, no residual quantum traces. There are no military vessels in this system." It looked like surrender, it looked like victory, but couldn't shake the memory of Sarah's smile. "Admiral," his communication officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's broadcast on all frequencies, not encrypted." "Put it through." Sarah's face appeared on the screen. She looked exactly as she had 3 weeks ago when had encountered her at the border. She was sitting in what appeared to be a comfortable office, with a window behind her showing Earth's blue curve. "Welcome to our solar system, Admiral," she said pleasantly. "I see you brought friends." "Humanity's defiance of the Galactic Council ends today," declared. "Surrender now and we may show mercy. Resist and we will do what is necessary." "I understand," Sarah said. "You feel threatened, so you've brought overwhelming force to eliminate the threat. It's a reasonable response, I suppose, though I had hoped we could talk before it came to this." "There is nothing to discuss. Surrender or be destroyed." "Very well," Sarah said. "Since you insist on a demonstration of force, let's discuss what force actually means." Gestured to his tactical officer. "Target their major cities, prepare to fire." The weapons systems locked on. Earth was helpless below them, 300 ships against one undefended planet. This was what happened when primitive species overreached. Then Sarah said, "Tell me, Admiral, what do you think a weapon is?" "What?" "A weapon is a tool for applying force to achieve a desired outcome. Your ships have weapons designed to destroy matter through kinetic impact or energy transfer. Very efficient against physical targets. But what if the target isn't physical in the way you understand it?" Felt his unease growing. "What are you talking about?" "Every satellite around Earth is a computational node. Every space station is a quantum processing center. Every ship in our solar system is part of a distributed network. You thought you were attacking a planet with cities and colonies. You're actually inside the largest computer system ever created." The tactical display lit up with warnings. Every ship in the fleet was reporting system anomalies, not failures but changes. Their computers were being accessed, not by external signal but by direct quantum manipulation at the hardware level. "What are you doing?" demanded. "Showing you what we learned," Sarah replied. "20 years ago, you mocked us for our short. You were right to do so. 80 years isn't enough time to match civilizations millions of years old, so we stopped trying to match you in the traditional way." Watched in horror as his tactical displays began showing impossible data. The fleet's formation was unchanged, but the readiness status of every ship was dropping to zero. Not destroyed, not damaged, but disabled at the most fundamental level. "We couldn't match your experience, so we changed what experience means," Sarah continued. "Every human alive has chosen to augment themselves with direct neural interfaces to quantum computing systems. We experience reality in ways biological minds can't comprehend. Time flows differently for us. We can process millions of scenarios simultaneously. What takes you years to understand, we grasp in seconds." "You've turned yourselves into machines," said. "No, we've become something new. Still human, still individual, still capable of emotion and creativity, but no longer limited by the hardware we were born with. When you told us our were too short, we solved the problem. We uploaded our consciousness to quantum substrates. We're effectively immortal now." The tactical display showed a new contact appearing, then another, then dozens, then hundreds. Human ships, each one as advanced as the vessel had encountered before, materialized around the fleet. They hadn't been hiding. They had simply been operating in a quantum state that made them invisible until they chose to be observed. "You thought we had one ship," Sarah said. "We have thousands. You thought we were confined to Earth. We're on 47 worlds and expanding daily. You thought you were bringing overwhelming force. Admiral, you brought a fleet of 300 ships controlled by biological crews with reaction times measured in milliseconds. We have 3,000 ships controlled by consciousness that processes information at the quantum level. Your crews are brave and skilled, but they're fighting an enemy that can predict their every move before they make it." Watched as the human ships moved through his formation like ghosts, each one taking position beside a council vessel. His weapons were locked, not offline but unable to acquire targets because the targeting computers couldn't track objects that existed in quantum superposition. "We could have destroyed your fleet in the first microsecond," Sarah said. "Every ship you brought could have been disabled before your crew even registered our presence. We could have killed everyone here without breaking a sweat, but that's not what humans do." "Then what do you want?" asked. His voice came out quieter than he intended. "The same thing we wanted 20 years ago," Sarah replied. "To be left alone to develop our civilization in peace. We don't want your territory. We don't want your resources. We don't want to conquer or dominate anyone. We just want to be allowed to exist. The Council will never accept a power they can't control." "Then the Council needs to expand its understanding of what power means," Sarah said. "Look at your tactical display, Admiral. Really look at it." Looked. The display showed his 300 ships disabled but intact. It showed the 3,000 human vessels surrounding them. But it also showed something else, not a single casualty. In a battle between such disparate forces, the expected outcome would be total destruction of the inferior side. Instead, the Council fleet floated in space, completely intact, crews safe but absolutely helpless. "We've proven we can defeat you," Sarah said. "More importantly, we've proven we can defeat you without killing anyone. That restraint, Admiral, is the most dangerous thing about us. It means we have principles that supersede survival. It means we're not operating by the rules you understand. You're threatening the entire galactic order. No, we're offering you a choice. You can accept that humanity has earned the right to exist as an independent civilization, or you can keep trying to force us into submission. But know this, every time you come at us with force, we'll respond by demonstrating superiority without causing casualties. We'll keep proving we could destroy you but choose not to. Eventually, your people will start asking why you keep provoking a species that could kill you all but keeps showing mercy. Felt his certainty crumbling. He had come here to put humanity in its place, to restore the natural order of the galaxy where old, established species guided young, primitive ones. But Sarah was right. How could he maintain authority when his enemy kept demonstrating both superior capability and superior restraint? "What do you propose?" he asked. "Go back to the council," Sarah said. "Tell them what happened here. Tell them humanity will leave council space alone, will respect established territories and trade routes, will not interfere with galactic affairs. But tell them also that humanity will not be contained, will not be controlled, and will not ask permission to exist. And if the council refuses, then we keep having days like today," Sarah replied, "where you attack and we defend without killing. Eventually, you'll realize that the only winning move is not to play. We've transcended the need for your approval, Admiral. The question is whether you can transcend the need to control us." The human ships began to release the council vessels from their quantum locks. One by one, the fleet systems came back online. Weapons functional, shields operational, targeting systems working. The humans gave everything back, demonstrating once again that they could have destroyed the fleet but chose not to. "One more thing," Sarah said. "This entire encounter has been